Without Supra, I couldn't be a master driver.
The car that's synonymous with JDM, Toyota's greatest sports machine, the Beast from the East. Hey guys, I'm your host Ariel, and today we're going over the whole history of the Toyota Supra. Before the Supra was a Supra, you keep giggling. Before the Supra was a Supra, it was first a Celica XX. Toyota took their Celica model cars and introduced them to an upgraded 2000 GT-M engine. Toyota just smashed this larger engine into the smaller Celica frame by stretching the wheelbase 5.1 inches, resulting in a longer front end design. The car produced a total of 110 horsepower from the 2.6-liter inline end design. This car actually was pretty weak for the time. However, it proved to the world that Toyota was ready to dabble in sports cars. In testing, the 6-cylinder pushed the Celica Supra to 60 miles per hour in, wait for it, 11.2 seconds. Towards the end of this generation, it received a larger 2.8-liter inline-six, producing 116 horsepower. Wow, like 6 horsepower makes a difference. Now, this is a little bit of irony. Toyota can make reliable cars, but they can't make fast cars. So they partnered with one of the fastest and most unreliable car brands at the time, Lotus. Nowadays, Superboys complain about Toyota and BMW making the new generations. The second-gen Celica Supra, also referred to as the Mark II here in the US and the A50 in Japan, came out in 1982. This generation swaps the old model's rear axle design for independent semi-trailing arms, a setup that helped earn it many awards and driver comparison tests throughout the early 80s. Under the hood, a new twin-cam 2.8-liter inline-six produced 145 horsepower compared to the older model's single cams, 116 horsepower. While we appreciate the first-generation Celica Supra for its reasonable power and modern amenities, it hadn't yet matured into a real sports car. Fortunately, Toyota blessed the second-gen Supra with the sort of driving dynamics that would help it go on to snag 2 of the 10 Best Cars awards, one in 1983 and another in 1984. Halfway through 1986, the Mark III Supra officially ditches the Celica name. The two cars are no longer linked. The smaller 4-cylinder Celica moves to a front-wheel drive platform, while the Supra becomes its own model and remains as a rear-wheel drive car. Although heavier than its predecessor, the latest Supra boasts a new naturally aspirated 200 horsepower and 185 foot-pounds of torque from a 3.0-liter inline-six. For 1987, Toyota introduced an even more vicious Supra Turbo model. Thanks to the turbocharger, it now produces 230 horsepower and 246 foot-pounds of torque. This version of the Supra had a 0 to 60 time in just 6.4 seconds, 1.6 seconds quicker than the naturally aspirated Supra Mark III. It was the Mark III Turbo that really won the hearts of people and would start the trend of the Supra being taken seriously. Now let's have a talk for a minute about the last engine upgrade to the Mark III. Usually cars get better as they evolve, such is the way of life. But this generation was not just a normal evolution, this was a transcendence into legend. The Mark III was packing the mythical 1JZ engine. A revolutionary inline-six engine designed specifically for sports cars. The engine alone wasn't too powerful, but when you added turbos with proper tuning, you could easily surpass 500 horsepower. Oh no, I said horsepower like Tanner. No! There are guys still today pushing this engine to its limits. Push it to the limit. The 1JZ was and still is an amazing engine, but doesn't hold a candle to what's next. In In 1993, the Mark IV Supra changed the game yet again. The engineers at Toyota got together and came up with one of the most ultimate equations known to man. 1JZ plus 1JZ equals 2JZ. Doubling the package, they doubled the fun of the Supra. This engine came equipped with twin turbos, producing 320 horsepower and available in a 6-speed gearbox. Not only stronger, but the car was roughly 200 pounds lighter than the previous gen. This monster topped 0 to 60 in just 5.9 seconds. At the time, it beat the Chevy Corvette, Mazda RX-7, Nissan 300Z X Turbo, and the Porsche 968. As the 90s progressed, young tuners began picking up secondhand Supras on the used car market, subsequently turning their prized possessions into autocross monsters, drag racing devils, and drifting darlings. In 2001, the Mark IV jumped into the mainstream, appearing in The Fast and the Furious, one of Paul Walker's most iconic rides. Rest in peace, Paul Walker. There are many copies of this iconic Supra meant for filming, and one is expected to sell for $200,000. The Mark IV generation would continue to rise in price, becoming some of the most valuable sports cars to own, with the average well-maintained Supra going for around $40,000 for a 20-plus-year-old car. The great thing about these cars is the extensive aftermarket support, with some builds reaching past 1,000 horsepower. The 2JZ is truly a marvelous engine to this day. One last noteworthy thing about this generation was not only its speed, but its stopping distance. A Supra Turbo managed 70 to 0 miles per hour, stopping distance of 149 feet. This remained the shortest stopping distance recorded by the magazine for 7 years, until a Porsche Carrera GT bested it in 2004 by just 4 feet. Unfortunately, with new emission standards in the US, the Supra ceased to be sold to North America in 1998. Toyota kept coming out with concepts for the US market, but never delivered. It was a horribly kept secret that Toyota was partnering with BMW to create a new generation of the sports car. Although Toyota would never publicly say it was the comeback of the Supra everyone guessed it was. And in 2018, Toyota finally announced the Mark V or A90 evolution of the Supra. Now, before you complain about how it's not a Toyota, it's just a BMW. Yes, its internals do harken back to the German powerhouse sports car brand, but it's not the first time Toyota has worked with a European brand to build the Supra. Remember Lotus? It's funny though how you will find BMW labels all around the car.
Definitely the same gas cap BMWs have. Little shifter, the infotainment dial, all the buttons down below. Well, this is right out of a BMW. It says BMW right there on the plastic. And looks like these are the coil packs that all say BMW right on them.
Most of this car's nature is German. However, the design and some tweaks to the engine give this car its unique Japanese-inspired flair. The Supra is closely related to BMW's Z4 Roadster, and instead of the legendary 2JZ inline-6, it has Munich's turbocharged 3.0-liter inline-6 and a ZF Source 8-speed automatic transmission. The output on the 2020 3.0 models produced a lackluster 335 horsepower, which was updated in 2021 to 385 horsepower, 368 foot-pounds of torque, making a lot of people angry they bought the first model year. However, with certain tunes, you can achieve well into the 400 horsepower territory, but then you would void some warranties and whatever.
Oh my god! This car is so fast now!
Even with these relatively low numbers, the Supra does boast a 0 to 60 time of 3.9 seconds, which isn't bad. The Supra Mark V is still new, but what made the prior model so successful was its low barrier of entry and the extensive aftermarket support for both JZ engines. So time will tell on these new Mark Vs. Thanks for watching, guys, if you made it this far. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, like, comment, and subscribe.